Hi, and welcome to this guided voiceover of my head sculpting process. Uh, this is less of a tutorial. Well, you could look at it as a tutorial. I'll be going over the tools that I use, but it won't be any specific detail like other sculpting tutorials. Like I previously have one where it's an introduction to Zbrush. Here I will mostly be going over my process. So as you can see here, I'm starting off by just roughly shaping in the shape of a head. And I usually mask out the neck area and just use the move tool to pull it back. I use the move tool a lot in the beginning, more than any other brush. And eventually I'll go over to using the trim dynamic brush and the clay build-up brush. Now this video is sped up by 100%, so that's twice as fast, meaning that the playtime has been cut in half. I think this video is about 1 hour, cut down to something around a half an hour. And well, you'll see that by the end. This is some old footage though. This is why I'm doing a voiceover. It's just me recording how I go through sculpting a head. And I'm trying this time-lapsed voiceover just one time now. And if you guys like it, I might do some more. If you guys don't, leave some feedback, and maybe I'll just go back to doing the real-time, tutorial talk where I record all my voice during the process when I'm making the model instead of afterwards. So yeah, in the beginning here, I'm just trying to make like a basic head shape, helmet kind of head. I used the trim dynamic to make planes on the face, and I use the clay brush to kind of start defining some features. And I'm just filling in the bottom part of the bust. I usually end at the clavicle area, maybe a little bit down, and sometimes I include shoulders, sometimes I don't. It depends really on how much I can be bothered with. It's nice often to cut it off a bit before. Now I don't have all the footage for this head sculpt, so some of it will be missing. I will be taking it to detail later. I have already worked more on it than I will show in this video, but it's a good starting point for you to start with your head sculpting if you haven't done it before. Now I'm looking at reference on the side. Nothing specific, it's not an actor or anything, just a bunch of pictures of people's faces that I find appealing. I think it's like a 40, 50-year-old man. I usually like to start out with a crude face, and then if I want him to look younger, I'll make him younger by smoothing out details and curves and stuff like that. Some people like to do it the other way. They like to make him look young first, but I really feel like I get all the anatomy right when I have more features to base my proportions on and stuff. So here you can see I'm roughing out the eyes. I'm using the clay build-up brush to just dig in towards the eyes and try to define the skull through the skin. I always over exaggerate when I make my skull anatomy. It'll look really weird for a while, and then I fill in the fats and the muscles afterwards. So eventually, in the beginning, I'm trying to go for like a mix between a skull and a face. I don't really go all the way make a skull because then I'll have to fill in a lot, which I really don't need to. But I make like a mix between a skull and a face, and it usually helps me get the proportions right and to know where all the bones would protrude and stuff like that. It's really a personal process. I've done many different ways of sculpting heads. Sometimes I do it very strictly with measuring. Sometimes I do it by hand and measure afterwards. It's some people would say it's really important to do all your measuring first, and you'll save a lot of time. But sometimes I feel like I get caught up in all the measuring, and I actually waste a bunch of time. And I can just as well change it later. And I'm just making some marks here and there that'll help me see where the face is gonna go. when I look at this after the fact, I can easily see, you know, where I wanna change things. But when I'm sculpting, I don't see them right away. It takes me a little, like I need to take a step back and stuff and put in some features. So in this sculpt, I don't use many tricks. It's very basic, just clay build up for most of it. Here, as you can see how I do my mouth. Just build up a little like bump, and then I use the Damien standard brush to just crease it in. And I just make a line, really. That's all I need to make for now. And here I can I'm starting to realize all the proportions are all of it weird. So I try to like crease in the face and stuff to make it a bit smaller face compared to the skull. I usually always get surprised when I actually look at reference and I really like analyze it and try to separate the elements. I really get surprised of how big the back of the skull really is compared to the face. Like the face is often quite small. You have people all kinds of different sizes, but very often I see that I make the face too big compared to the skull, and I realize later, and I like squeeze it in. So I'm still doing my proportions. I think I'm going back to now like detailing in a little bit more of the skull, moving the eyes back a bit, just making sure that every angle looks fine. Now here's one way of making eyes. I have another way where I put a sphere in there and I just Dynamesh merge it in. That's another technique that I have. Now here I'm putting in a sphere, but I only think that I use this for the eye itself, for the eyeball. I don't think I actually merge it in. Yeah, pretty sure. Yeah. So I use it on one side first to see how I should fill in, and because if it's covering both sides, it can be a bit annoying when you're sculpting over it if you don't want to have on the X-ray mode. So here I'm trying to fill in the bone that goes from your cheek back to your ear, and going back to the eyes again. I'm just filling in tissue mostly, going a bit more away from the... I'll be going a bit more away from the skull now shape. I'll be going more to like making an actual face instead of just a weird shape. I often re-Dynamesh when I get to this kind of phase. Dynamesh is really nice to just reconstruct your geometry, but you'll often realize that it'll dampen all your details, so you shouldn't go too much into detail when you work in here. I think as you can see here, I'm like, oh, it's crumbing up my details too much, so I increase the resolution of the Dynamesh a little bit more at this point. I usually do that when I get to the eyes, ears, and mouth part of the process. And it always, to me, like when I look at my sculptures after, if I look at the video of me sculpting or like a time lapse in Zbrush, I always feel like like what was I doing at this certain point? It doesn't look like a face at all, but it just takes a bit of work for me. Like I said, I'd use about an hour to sculpt the head, and this is, I'd say, 15 minutes into the video. Like real time, maybe 10-15 minutes. So some people use more, some people use less. I've seen some people be really fast, and if you use like a base head, you can get a nice head going in like 20 minutes. But it's not cheating, but it's cheating if you're measuring how fast you can make a base head, because you would already have one, obviously. So for the ears, I have a technique that I like to use. I usually like make the ear and then merge it in, but here I'm just straight up sculpting it out, and I'm masking and just doing it the brute force way, as I would like to call it. Masking, moving, inflating, just to get that like indentation on the back. Inflate is really nice for ears usually, but don't make it too much because it looks like you have some sort of like allergy going on and you're just puffy face, but it should be easy to solve. And using perspective is also really clever, smart sometimes to do, because I usually sculpt my beginnings without the perspective in order to get the proportions right, but it all looks sort of weird sometimes until I like turn the perspective on and I realize, oh, okay, you know, a little bit of perspective always helps. You don't have to have too much. It should look okay in both ways, but it'll always look a bit weird in the orthographic view. And yeah, now I've gotten to the face where it, you know, it's kind of got the shape of a guy, but it's not like completely good yet. And I'll get there when I copy the eyes and stuff, and I can tell that the head is like, he has a big brain at this moment. And I will change stuff like that later. The head you see in the thumbnail is about an hour extra work after the one that I'm done with this. And it's just because I lost a lot of the footage. Basically an hour got corrupted. There was a crash, and for some reason my recording software crashed because of it as well. But you'll get the main point of the sculpture in this one. I mean, really the result that I have at the end of this hour is like more than good enough to be considered to call a human sculpt. It's just I changed the character and I polypaint him towards the last hour of the sculpture, and that's why it looks different. You can see it at the end of this video. There will be a picture of him there, of the result. Well, so far result. I will take this head further in another video where I'll do wrinkle detailing and all that to really like sell the photorealism and not just sculpting a head shape. Because this video will end at me just having a head shape really roughed out. You can still see like clay tubes everywhere and stuff. So here I'm using a lot of damp standard. I use the alternate version a lot to like crease eyelids and such. Not in this video, but in another video I might upload how I make the eye holes and the eye bag for like Z remesher. I have that footage. It's a piece of footage where I just cut out the eye holes and I cut out the mouth and I use Z remesher to get like an okay mesh to continue sculpting details on and stuff. Which can be a bit of a tedious process. It can take some time, and you can like, it's not nice to have in a sculpting video because it'll take like half the video and nothing will really happen. Only thing that'll happen is me changing the underlying mesh, which is important if you really want to build up the details. So at this point it's kind of like this Deadpool from the Wolverine movie look I usually go for, because the mouth was like making me confused, and I took it away. It's much more easier to look at a flat surface than to look at something that's wrong for me. And I'm just going in. I think I'm really looking at reference now to figure out like what kind of character am I looking for, and he had this very like V shape in his muscles above his eyes. Now I haven't taken a lot of anatomy really. I've looked at anatomy and I've like tried to sculpt anatomy, but I haven't taken the time to learn all the words. So especially for facial anatomy, I don't have all the technical linguistics abilities about all the facial structures, but it helps to know it a little bit, like what it would look like, and at least for me. I think it's important to know your anatomy, but not by words, but at least by shape and placement and stuff. Some people have a good aid from knowing the words as well, though. And some people make the eyes, they go inwards, but I like them to go out like they actually do, because that's what's defining the shape. If they go inwards, you can get nicer renders off of a clay render. If they go outwards, you often get a dead look in the eye with a clay render, but the shape of the eye will be much more realistic. So when you put an actual eye render in there, like with double lenses and iris and all that, it'll look correct. So that's why I do the bump out instead of in, like many sculptors like to do. I'm not. The point of this sculpture is not to have a clay maquette or just a clay model that I'll print or anything. It's to make a head sculpture that could be used for rendering a realistic head, or in a game, or in a just a regular rendered scene. But as you can see at this point, it's really a lot about the detailing. Yes, I don't have a mouth yet, but I kind of see mouths as this like very intricate, detailed thing. The shape of a mouth is just like a lump, a big like lumpy area. And yeah, so that's why I usually leave it until the end. Actually, I leave the ears until the end usually, but it looks like in this one I pulled the ears out before I had any good mouth going. I tried a mouth earlier, but it was a bit of a fail. So you're gonna see a more detailed version of how I make the mouth afterwards. As you can see, the clay build-up brush is like my go-to brush. I just use it for everything, really, when I make sculptures like this. There's no like special needs or anything. It's just clay, clay, clay. Creasing tool is good to use, of course. It's dam standard, clay build-up, and move, and trim dynamic. But I don't use trim dynamic that much. But those are the brushes that I'd use for sculpting a head. Inflate, like there's some niche cases for the ear. You know, I'd use inflate for the ear, and maybe the standard brush, because the standard brush gives some nice curvature. So inside the ear, I'd use the standard brush. But for everything else, it's all clay buildup, and I usually do like many strokes, like tiny layers. My power on my buildup brush is quite weak, and I like to do lots of strokes. And I like to do them, well, sometimes I do them with the muscle fibers, although I often prefer to do them against the shape. So you'll see that when I do the mouth, the sides of the mouth, instead of like making sorry, touched the microphone. But instead of doing like a ring around the mouth, I'll do like little like cross hatchings with the clay brush. It really helps. So you see there I used the transpose tool to measure how far down I wanted the clavicle to be, which is usually a head below, or a head and a half. Yeah, just usually a head below the chin in an orthographic view. I think it's a little bit less, but I use a head. You know, that's fine enough. You get a nice long neck when you use an entire head between the clavicle and the bottom of the chin. So I think like a 75% of a head is more like realistic, but depends on the character. Some people have long necks, some people have short necks. If you want a long necked character, you can increase it. If you don't, you can get people telling you, oh, it's not proportionate. So here you can see me doing the trapezius, at least starting on it, and I'm doing the with the muscle fibers a bit, and on the top here I'll do against the muscle fibers. It's just because it fits much better in. I don't want the curvature to be too extreme on my strokes. I like to keep straight strokes, just a bunch of straight strokes, and then change the direction of them. So if you have a muscle that's curving, I'll usually not follow the entire stroke. So I'm still doing like proportions. I'll be doing proportions until the end of the character. You know, even when I have quite detailed characters, sometimes I'll do some proportional changes, and so that's where people will tell me, oh well, you should like take your time before and do your proportional changes there. But I really think it helps the character to do proportional changes after. Some characters suit certain proportions better than others, in my opinion, and it helps you develop character along the way. Now, I'm not saying don't uh, do all the proportions really properly in the beginning. I'm just saying that I personally find that I spend less time thinking about the technicalities and more time just creating when I don't think about the proportions in the beginning. I do think about the proportions, just not like to the pitch perfect sense that some people might expect or want. The end result is really all that matters, and what kind of time you spend to get there. And if you can sculpt a head sculpt like this in an hour, you're doing fine. I mean, there are people who are faster. There's always going to be somebody better than you. There's always going to be somebody faster. But an hour, you can consider yourself an okay artist when it comes to speed. If you can get a fairly realistic proportionate head within an hour, you're doing well, in my opinion. I guess I might be a bit biased, but at least I get work. So if you're looking to get work because of your speed or your skill, an hour for a head sculpt should be more than acceptable. Or else you're gonna end up like making bad art. Not bad art, but art that you don't feel like is good enough for what you want to achieve. And I'm also a bit scattered. Some people like to focus and bring the entire model up at one point, like it builds in detail all at the same time. I like to do a little bit here, a little bit there, see where it takes me. That's how my brain works. I can't focus too much at one point at this at all the time, so I usually let my brain rest by going somewhere else. So here you can see my mouth technique usually. I advise you to look this one over because it's really kind of like thought through on my part in the way I do it. No, I can't skip back and stuff in this video, but I would if I could to show you. You're just gonna have to stop yourself. And I usually just use the clay buildup, filling in the top lip and the bottom lip with a scratch between them. Eventually I make different poly groups to make it easier to separate them and stuff. And mouths are a bit fiddling, so I usually just spend some time on them. It helps. The more time you spend, the more you'll understand. Especially this like corner of the mouth can be quite difficult to understand how it actually works. The mouth, it kind of folds itself inside from the outside to the in. It's like a fold, and the lips are like the folded out of the inside of the mouth. And I guess that's my thought process to make me like kind of understand the shape. It's just to make this fit, try to make it feel like it folds inward. And fiddling around is usually the best way to get there for me. Just working on it. Now I can tell this mouth is like way too small. I'm probably gonna change that. Later on, I'm pretty sure, because I know what the end result is like, so I know I'm gonna make it better. But this tiny mouth, yeah, it's starting to grow a little bit. The shape is the most important, and it's really hard. Don't beat yourself up if you get like pucker mouth or if you get like flat mouth at the beginning. It's really something that needs work. The shape though is really important. Like where the curves go. As you can see from the top lip, it's kind of like going down towards the side, and then it kind of curves into the inside of the corner. And the same with the mouth. It like on the bottom, it comes up from the sides, and then it just folds in at the very edges of the lip. And here I'm like exaggerating fat tissues, just so I don't forget them. Because oftentimes I'm looking at anatomies and it's all like muscle based. There's very few that really have like the fats and stuff. So I usually look at like old people, and old people often have a good definition of where their fats would store. And like I said, I often make like an older looking character at first and then make it look younger by fiddling around. It really helps me. I don't know why. But before I used to make like young characters, and now I'm gonna and think like, oh, now I'm gonna make it look older, and then I would add wrinkles and stuff, and it would just look not as good. And it might just be me becoming better as well, and then tricking myself into believing that my technique is begotten, like my theory of making older looking characters and then making them younger is better than me just making young characters and then making them look older. It's really up to you how you do it. I still haven't copied the eye over. That's a bit concerning. I usually do that a lot before, but I guess I was very focused on the mouth area, and at this point I have like a decent mouth built in, to the point where I'm like, oh, the mouth looks like the mouth now. It doesn't look like just a flat line or something like that. As you can see, I do very small strokes. I usually like try to cross the stroke patterns to not make them like stick together too much. I try to keep a shape on a shape. I'll try to keep the same stroke pattern. Like you can see on the folds down the side of the nose that come past the mouth, it's all the same direction. And then the folds that come up underneath the lip, it's like same direction there as well. But at this point, like I said later on, it's just gonna be tweaking. It's really what takes time. Just tweaking it. The more you tweak it, the better it'll look. That's just the way it is. And here I realize that I have some troubles feeling the human in him. So I like to paint an eyeball. Painting an eyeball really helps selling the humanity, especially when you put on this toy plastic is the material I usually put on the subtool, and I'll just like paint some eye color ish, paint a pupil is. And it's really not that important that it's perfect or in the center. As you can see, it's quite a wobbly shape. From a distance you won't tell. And then I pick a lighter color to fill on the bottom to like simulate that light is reflected. And yeah, I like darken the edges. It really helps. After that, I'm just filling in the iris area, making it more like realistic, if you would say. It doesn't really need to look realistic at this point. It's just to remind you that there's something human in there. And actually a cartoony, if you go too far, it'll look very like uncanny. Like you get the uncanny valley feeling a lot from it, and it won't really look right. But you know, tweaking it around, it looks really angry right now. He looks much more relaxed later on, as you can see in the end of the sculpture video. You'll see that he starts to look really relaxed. More happy, maybe not more happy, but he'll look more friendly. Yeah. I for some reason always end up looking. My characters look very like angry or aggressive for a beginning of my sculpts. They usually look not very happy. I think it's because my reference people, they were all looking very serious, and I tried to make like a neutral kind of eye, and you know, if people are looking as dead as they can in their face, they often look dead serious, and that'll be a bit scary. I guess. So yeah, in the comments below, I really would appreciate it if you guys tell me what you'd want. I don't release videos that often, but I think I'll be doing some more, like every Friday, or maybe not every Friday, but some Fridays ahead. I'll be releasing more videos. I recently put up a Patreon page. For the moment it's not there, but I'm gonna see if there's some interest for it. And what I'll do is, if I make a tutorial like this one, you can go on the Patreon page and you can get the scene files that I'm working on in the video, so that you either can follow along, like if I have a base model or anything like that, you can start there, and maybe I'll have some like halfway through models, and then I'll have the final models included as well. Now in this one, I will only have the final model that you can see at the end of this video. I'll put that on the Patreon page. And if you want to support me, and I see that there's an interest to watching me make 3D stuff or make tutorials or just this kind of stuff, then maybe I'll do more. Because when I started it, I really had like a thing where I was just doing it for fun. Really, I just did it. I just made videos because I had learned a lot from the community, and I felt like I needed to give back a little bit. So that's why I made the videos. I've gone to school. I went to a games design course, and but other than that, I'm pretty much self-taught. And self-taught is a bit silly to say. I'm community taught. They've taught me everything I know, really. Because when I got to school, I kind of already knew everything they were teaching me there. But it was a formality. I met a lot of nice people there. I developed some skill about video game design philosophy, but not so much the technicality of things, which is what these videos are about. So that's what I think I'm going to be giving back for. But now I have a job and everything, and since a while now I haven't really had the time to make videos, because they don't really produce any monetary outcome. There's no financial benefit for me really from these videos, at least not to the point where I can use it for anything else than buying a sandwich every month or so. But if there's some more support in the Patreon page, I'll put up some more videos like this with some Patreon support, meaning models, textures, whatever I'm working on. The scene files will be in the Patreon page for those who support. And I'll see if there will be supporters. Who knows? Maybe this will be a thing that I'll be doing a lot more. And yeah, the link will probably be in the description to the page, so you can have a look at it if you're interested. If not, enjoy the content. Maybe you'll learn from just the videos and just looking at what I'm doing. It's really how I learned the best from sculpting. Uh, Not so much like click here, do this. That was easy for mechs and more technical software, but Zbrush is very much about the feeling. How do you like tackle a problem like this, like an anatomy problem? This is purely an anatomy problem, which is making a human head and just sculpting it. As you see, my process is very unorganized, if I will. Some people are really good at making heads, and I actually, I take the time and I end up spending a similar amount of time. I don't know, maybe I have some like acceleration to my work versus other people that they just have a even flow and they get good models right off the bat. But I think mine in the beginning, if you go back to the beginning of the video, you'll see it looks a bit weird. And it won't look quite right at the end of this video either, but we'll get there in the next one. You'll see. I'm gonna when I upload the skin texture tutorial, if you will, where I use some alphas, some sculpting. Like I like to sculpt a lot of my wrinkles myself by hand. That's how I usually find them turning out the best. There is some scam data you can use that's really good. It gives you a good base, and then you can work from the base and forward. At least that's what I think is a good way to do it. You'll see in the video when I upload it. Maybe next Friday, maybe the one after there. I'll hope for next Friday though. It would be cool if I could start doing these more. I really like them actually because I'm kind of just working for myself really. I'm not doing work that somebody else told me to do. It's more work that I'm like, oh yeah, I made this head sculpt. Why not upload the video with the voiceover? But yeah, like I said earlier, keep the feedback coming. I usually like to hear what you guys have to say. It really motivates me to do more, and I learn from the process as well. It's not just for your benefit. It's for my benefit as well. It's learning by doing. When you try to teach somebody else something, you actually kind of learn it even better yourself. I don't know why, but I think it has something to do with the fact that you're really trying to understand what you're doing yourself. Although in this video, like the video itself, I didn't really set out to teach people. I was, well, that's not true. I was mentoring a friend of mine, and he was trying to learn head sculpting, and he was having some struggles. And I wanted to show a quick process video. Yeah, I remember now. Not a video, but a quick process. And I thought I'd give him the video as well, so that's why I recorded it. And now I thought I could put it on the channel as well. And help more people. Maybe. This time with a voiceover, sadly. For you people who really like it real time and like direct feedback from me while I'm sculpting. Which I can understand because my voiceover would be more like relevant to what I'm doing. Like since a while now in the video, I've just been really detailing and just working the same way, adding tiny strokes with clay buildup to get the shapes out. Like my biggest tips would be for using the clay buildup method is to go against like sideways from a stroke. If you have a shape and like it's rectangular shape, in my opinion, almost all shapes are like this. You just stroke on the short side instead of down the long side. The shorter strokes you can take on a shape, the better. So the best way is to take the shortest stroke. Now if it's a square shape, it doesn't matter which direction you do it, but for rectangular shapes like the side of the mouth and stuff, you do the short stroke. When you're doing the detail work, like when you're making the features. When you're doing this block out, it doesn't really matter. You just go the long way because it's quicker or whatever. And I think we're reaching towards the end of the video now. I'm like trying to figure out what's wrong with the eyes. Now, what's wrong with the eyes here, I can really already tell you, is that the pupils are far too up in the eyelids, so he's looking very through his eyebrows. It's very like angry, serious looking, droopy eyelids. So I need to move those up, and I need to change the skull a little bit. But I haven't realized that yet, obviously, or else I would be doing it right away, wouldn't I? No, so this is what I do when I'm not sure exactly what's wrong. I just fiddle. You see, I'm picking at the corners, just like where to next? Maybe the neck. I don't actually believe that there's something wrong with the neck here, or that there's something that needs to be done. But picking at it, I see, oh, there's something a bit off. It's not great. It's not perfect. I think there I was opening some reference and just looking at it. Don't really remember. Yeah, so down here at this point, I'm not really doing this to improve the sculpt in any particular way. I'm just like letting my mind relax on the whole head face part. So I'm just like doing something that's easy to think on. It's not really difficult. I'm not even trying to make it look much better. I'm just changing it and adding some definition, maybe, you know. Doing some chest fidgeting. But yeah, tell me what you think. If it's a nice way to learn, or just watch the video. I'm sure, because I think a lot of people agree with me, I like the real-time version. But this is a lot easier for me. I can just sit here and talk after the fact and look at myself sculpting, get some perspective, I guess. Instead of, because when I have to sculpt, I use my brain to think about how the sculpt is going to be, and then I'll be silent for a long time, or I'd say some silly stuff that I probably should keep to myself. I tend to be humorous in my own mind when I'm sculpting, but then, you know, I'm not the best comedian to tell you the truth, so I'll end up saying some silly stuff, which could be funny. So I keep on doodling. I think at this point I'm a bit lost. I'm not sure where to continue. And this is the point where you should really start to ask for feedback for some people. I posted this sculpture on 10,000 hours asking for some feedback, and as soon as I got some feedback, it didn't even have to be the right feedback. They could be picking on something else. And my mind kind of like realizes why they think this certain thing is wrong. Like when you take in feedback, you should always just take it with a grain of salt and try to look at why they would come to that conclusion. Now you can question them, but you shouldn't really right away. People don't really like to be questioned when they give feedback. But you should try to question them in your own mind, like why does he come to the conclusion that this is wrong? Like if it's something you know that's correct, that you measured it, you're really right, but you can often come to see why he would think that, and then realize what actually needs to be changed. And that's what I did with this one. It's like people would say, well, most of them would say, oh, it looks nice, but then some guys would be, they could tell something was off, because I could tell something was off. That's why I posted it there too. I want to see what they thought. And I think there was a guy who mentioned something about the eye distancing or something. And instead what I did was I changed the shape of the skull and the way it like formed around the eyes. Just proportional change. It was tiny change. It took me like 10 seconds. And poof, it looked a lot better. Like suddenly it was just a good sculpture suddenly. Well, not good. It was good compared to what it was before with this one. But yeah, this is me reaching the end of the sculpt at this point. I'm looking for feedback. I can't find it in my own mind. I'm just picking back and forth at it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a little bit about the techniques, surfacing. Nothing specifics though. If you want to know any specifics, just ask in the comment section below and I will answer you as fast as I can and request a video. If not, you know, at least you watched to the end. See you next time.